After a year of planning our dream wedding, my fiancé sat me down and confessed, "I never loved you, my parents paid me to marry you for your inheritance." My heart pounded as his mother smirked, "So be a good girl and sign the prenup." Hands shaking, I smiled and whispered, "Check the news headlines right now." Seconds later, their faces turned ghostly white as my secret was exposed. I'm 28, female, and I live in Charleston, South Carolina. I was engaged to a man named Brian. We dated for a little over a year before he proposed. Everyone told me we were the perfect couple. I thought we were. He was charming, good-looking, came from a wealthy family, and said all the right things. He met me during a charity art auction downtown, and from that night, he pursued me hard. Flowers, romantic dinners, sweet texts, he did it all. I come from a quiet family. My parents passed away when I was in college, and I was left a decent inheritance from my grandparents. I don't flaunt it. I don't drive luxury cars or wear expensive clothes. I live in a simple house I renovated myself. But people in Charleston talk, and I guess word got around that I was worth something. Brian's parents were very involved. His mom in particular. From the first moment we met, she had this strange energy. Always watching, always asking questions about my family and my inheritance, sometimes even making comments like, "Well, you won't have to worry about money for long." I thought she was just awkward or snobby. Turns out, she was worse. The wedding planning lasted nearly a year. We booked a venue in Savannah, Georgia, because Brian insisted on a classy Southern wedding, and we were pouring a ton of money into it. I noticed Brian wasn't contributing much, but I didn't question it. I figured he was just letting his parents help. Again, I was wrong. For weeks before the wedding, Brian came home from work, sat me down in the living room, and looked pale. Like actually pale. Not a hangover. Not tired. Just drained. He didn't say anything for a while, and I kept asking what was wrong. Then, he just said it. "I never loved you. My parents paid me to marry you, because of your inheritance." I blinked. I thought he was joking. But he wasn't smiling. His voice was flat. My ears started ringing, my heart was racing, but I stayed quiet. Before I could even react, his mom came in. She must have been waiting outside the door, because she stepped in like she was entering a meeting. She was holding a folder and looked me dead in the eye. "So," she said with a fake smile, "let's not make this more emotional than it needs to be. Be a good girl and sign the prenup." Yes, she said that. Word for word. I didn't say anything. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to smile. I just said, very softly, "Check the news headlines right now." She frowned, clearly annoyed. But she pulled out her phone. Brian did too. They both started scrolling. Then it happened. His mom's face dropped. Brian went ghost white. They both stared at their phones like they were watching their house burn down in real time. I just sat there. Earlier that month, I'd overheard Brian talking to his dad on the phone late at night. He was in the kitchen and didn't realize I'd come downstairs. They were discussing some timeline and how she'll sign it after the cake tasting. I started recording. I didn't know what was going on at the time, but something felt very wrong. That recording led me down a path I wish I never had to walk. I hired a private investigator. I didn't tell anyone. He found everything. Bank transfers. Text messages. Emails. There was one payment labeled Initial Agreement, Phase 1. Another one that said marry her before Q3, bonus if successful. I wanted to throw up. They planned the whole thing. From the beginning. Brian's parents found out about my inheritance through some mutual friends and saw me as a financial opportunity. They were having some kind of financial trouble, bad investments, lawsuits, I don't know. But they saw me as the solution. Brian agreed to date me and win me over. They discussed how to pressure me into a prenup. They were counting on me being too in love to say no. I collected all of it. The messages, the voice recordings, screenshots, and payment receipts. I sent everything to a local investigative reporter who works for a Charleston newspaper. She verified everything and said it was one of the most disgusting schemes she'd ever seen. We worked together for weeks. She said if I was comfortable, they'd publish the story the morning after I confronted them. But I asked her to move it up. The article went live exactly 5 minutes before Brian sat me down to confess. I had timed it on purpose. So there we were. Brian looking like a ghost. His mom silent for once in her life. Just staring at her phone. The headline read, Charleston heiress targeted in engagement fraud. Fiancé and his parents planned marriage for inheritance. There were photos. Screenshots. Direct quotes from the emails. Even parts of the recording. The story spread fast. Within an hour, it was on local TV, Facebook groups, Reddit threads. People recognized them immediately. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood up, looked at both of them, and said, "You thought I wouldn't find out?" Brian didn't say anything. His mouth was opening and closing like a fish. His mom finally muttered, "You'll regret this." I laughed. "No, I won't." "But you will." I walked out. I haven't ended the engagement officially yet. I haven't gone public myself. I haven't cancelled the wedding either. Not yet. I want to see what they do next. I have my reasons. And I'm not done. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. By the time I got back to my house that night, my phone had already blown up. Friends. Coworkers. A few distant cousins. Even people I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone wanted to know what the hell was going on. Some people said they couldn't believe it. Others said they knew something was off about Brian and his family from the start. I didn't respond to anyone. Not even my best friend. I turned off my phone, made tea, and just sat in silence. My body was tired, but my brain wouldn't shut up. I kept replaying everything over and over, Brian's face, his mother's smirk, the sound of her voice when she said, "Be a good girl." I felt like my blood was vibrating. The next morning, I expected them to hide. Instead, they went on the offensive. Brian's father, who I'd only met a few times, released a statement to the press claiming the article was fake news and a cruel attack on their family's reputation. Brian's mother went on Facebook and posted this long, dramatic rant saying I was mentally unstable and that I fabricated the entire thing because I couldn't handle the pressure of a wedding. Then Brian texted me. "I made a mistake. Please let's talk." I didn't answer. An hour later, he showed up at my front door. He looked like hell. Unshaven, bags under his eyes, no polished smile this time. He stood there with his hands in his pockets and said, "I screwed everything up." I panicked. My parents pressured me. I never meant for it to go that far. I didn't invite him in. I stood in the doorway. I asked him one question, "Did you ever love me at all?" He didn't answer right away. Then he looked down and said, "I don't know." That was worse than a no. He tried to say more, but I closed the door. Later that day, I got an email from a woman named Claire. Subject line, "I know what they did to you." I opened it, expecting some stranger giving me sympathy. But no, Claire said she was Brian's ex. They dated in college. She said his parents had a thing about who he could be with. They always controlled his relationships, and when he got serious with someone they didn't like, they made him break it off. She said they even offered her money to leave him. But the real twist? Claire said she recognized the pattern. Because something almost exactly like this happened before, with another woman in Charleston. Someone Brian briefly dated right before me. I didn't know what to do with that information yet. So I asked her to meet up. We had coffee 2 days later. Claire was quiet, serious, and seemed just as disturbed as I was. She told me that Brian's family had a long history of shady dealings, and that their company was on the brink of collapse. Apparently, his parents had been trying to marry him into money for years. They treat him like a pawn, she said. But he goes along with it. He always does. We talked for 2 hours. She gave me names, screenshots, even showed me an old NDA they made her sign, then threatened to sue when she broke up with Brian. It was all the same pattern. They find a wealthy woman. Brian plays the perfect man. The family pressures, manipulates, tries to lock her in with legal documents. When it doesn't work, they smear her name and move on to the next. Except this time, I exposed them. And now they were scrambling. I knew it wasn't over. A week later, I got served. Brian's parents were suing me for defamation. The lawsuit claimed I damaged their reputation, hurt their business, and caused them emotional distress. They were asking for $2.5 million in damages. I laughed when I read it. They really thought that would scare me. It didn't. But it did make me angry. I called my lawyer. A family friend who's also a damn good attorney. She read the lawsuit and said, "This is garbage." But they're not just trying to win. They're trying to shut you up. I asked her if we could countersue. She smiled. Now we're in the middle of that. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night, I started getting anonymous letters in the mail. No return address. No name. Just typed out notes. The first one said, "You're playing with fire. You should stop before someone gets burned." The second one came a few days later, "If you don't drop the case, we'll make sure no one believes anything you say ever again." I turned them into the police. They're investigating, but I know it's them. I don't have proof yet, but my gut tells me it's Brian's parents, or someone they hired. I've increased security. Cameras. Locks. I even started carrying pepper spray again. I'm not stupid. I know people with money and power do desperate things when they feel cornered. And they are cornered. Because more people are coming forward now. More women. More stories. More evidence. And I'm not backing down. Not yet. Things started spiraling faster than I expected. The morning after I received the second anonymous letter, I noticed something strange. My front door was unlocked. I always lock it before bed. Always. I live alone. I'm cautious. I checked the windows, nothing broken. Nothing taken. But someone had been inside. I felt it. One of my coffee mugs was on the counter, and I hadn't used it in 2 days. That's when I decided to go full paranoia mode. I installed indoor cameras. Got a new security system with alerts straight to my phone. Moved some savings to another bank. I even had a locksmith come change every lock in my house. I didn't feel safe. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not even my lawyer. I wanted to see what would happen next. And then something did. I got a call from the reporter I'd worked with, let's call her Mia. She sounded panicked. Said she needed to meet immediately. That something came up. I met her at a diner in West Ashley. She looked rough. No makeup. Eyes red. She slid into the booth across from me and whispered, "They've been watching me." I didn't know what she meant. She said a man in a black SUV had been parked outside her apartment building every day for the past week. Same car, same time. When she tried to take a picture, he drove off. But it got worse. Her editor received a fake tip claiming she had faked evidence to destroy the Whitmore family. Yes, that's Brian's last name, guess I can finally say it. Then, someone emailed her a photo of her daughter playing in the schoolyard. No message. Just the photo. She was terrified. And angry. "I'm still running the follow-up article," she told me. "But I'm telling you now, this is bigger than you think." Then she dropped the real bomb. Mia had been digging deeper into the Whitmore's finances. She found documents suggesting that the Whitmores weren't just trying to marry Brian off for inheritance money, they were laundering money through shell charities. At least 3 of them, all tied to local philanthropy efforts in Charleston and Savannah. Guess what one of them was? The charity art auction where I met Brian. That was no coincidence. They targeted me. They planned that meeting. I almost threw up in the diner. I couldn't speak. My mind was racing. Everything I thought was real was a setup. That first smile, the way he just happened to be interested in the same artists I liked, all of it was fake. Mia handed me a folder before we parted ways. Hold on to this. If something happens to me, give it to the police. That folder hasn't left my side since. That same night, I got another letter. This time it wasn't typed. It was handwritten in messy capital letters. Final warning. Stop or suffer. It wasn't in an envelope. Just folded and shoved under my door. Whoever sent it, they were getting desperate. So I decided to take a risk. I agreed to meet with Brian. I texted him and said we could talk. I chose a public cafe, broad daylight, lots of people. He agreed immediately. He looked nervous when he arrived. No suit. Just jeans, t-shirt. Unshaven again. He sat across from me and said, I know you hate me. But I need to tell you something. I let him talk. He told me that after the article went live, his parents locked down everything. Changed passwords. Froze accounts. Shut him out. They're hiding something bigger, he said. Something I wasn't supposed to see. Apparently, Brian had discovered files on his dad's laptop, labeled with names, birth dates, and large dollar amounts. Some of the names were crossed out. One of the uncrossed names? Mine. I think they planned to take more than just your inheritance, he whispered. I think they wanted control over your trust. Then he dropped his twist. He wasn't the only person they paid. There was someone close to me who had been feeding them information. Someone I trusted. I froze. He wouldn't say who. I don't want to accuse the wrong person, he said. But check your inner circle. Now I don't know who to trust. I've stopped answering calls. I changed my locks again. I don't go anywhere without watching my back. I'm tired. I'm angry. And I'm scared. But I'm also not done. Not yet. 3 days after meeting Brian, everything exploded. I couldn't stop thinking about what he said, that someone close to me had been feeding them information. Every conversation I replayed. Every dinner. Every offhand comment. I started looking at my friends differently. My coworkers. Even my neighbor. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone knew what they were doing and was watching me unravel from the inside. And then I figured it out. I was at a bar downtown with my best friend, Rachel. We were catching up after weeks of silence. She was talking, but I wasn't really listening. Something wasn't right. I noticed she kept checking her phone every couple of minutes. Nervous glances. Then I saw her slip it under the table and type something quickly while I was mid-sentence. So I asked, "Who are you texting?" She looked up too fast. Blinked. No one. Just work. I nodded, pretending to buy it. I excused myself, went to the bathroom, and messaged a tech friend who owed me a favor. I gave him Rachel's number and asked him to run a simple trace, just to see who she'd contacted in the last few weeks. I told him I suspected something serious. I came back to the table. She was on edge. I was calm. A few hours later, he called me. Rachel's been talking to Mitchell Whitmore. Like, a lot. Texts, calls, even shared files through encrypted apps. My stomach dropped. Rachel. My best friend since college. Maid of honor in the wedding. The one person I cried to the night after Brian's confession. It was her. I didn't confront her then. I played it cool. Said goodnight. Hugged her. Then I planned everything. I waited 4 more days. That Friday, the Whitmore family was scheduled to hold a press conference downtown in one of those overdone rented hotel ballrooms. They were going to announce the lawsuit against me, claim innocence, and try to get ahead of the article Mia was about to publish, one with financial records and fraud proof. I decided that was the day everything came to light. I showed up early with Mia. We sat quietly near the back. The room filled with reporters, cameras, and a handful of Whitmore supporters in suits and pearls. Rachel walked in with Brian's parents. Not behind them. Beside them. Like she belonged. That hurt more than anything. Brian was there too. Off to the side. Looking pale again. He avoided eye contact. The press conference started. Mitchell Whitmore stood at the podium, all confidence and fake charm. He said I was an unstable young woman, claimed I'd fabricated a fantasy out of paranoia, and that his son had been emotionally manipulated by a woman obsessed with revenge. I stood up. Funny you should say that, I said loudly. Everyone turned. I walked to the front and dropped a thick manila envelope on the podium. Inside are detailed logs of financial fraud, including dates, wire transfers, and documents tying your family to at least 3 shell charities. And, surprise! Communications between you and Rachel Montgomery, my best friend of 10 years. Rachel looked like she'd been slapped. Reporters scrambled to get their cameras on me. Mitchell went red in the face. I turned to Rachel. How much did they pay you? What did they offer to make you betray me? She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. No, say it here. In front of everyone. She shook her head. You don't understand. Oh, I do. You fed them everything. My fears. My insecurities. You played both sides. Brian stepped forward. Dad, stop this. It's over. Mitchell turned. Brian, don't you dare. But Brian kept going. She's telling the truth. All of it. I saw the files. I was part of it, and I tried to get out. But you made me stay. The room erupted. Cameras flashed. People shouted questions. Brian's mother collapsed into a chair. Rachel started crying. I didn't mean to hurt you. I needed the money. I didn't know how far it would go. I stared at her. The girl who held my hand at my mom's funeral. Who helped me pick out my wedding dress. I said, then you should have said no. Even once. She didn't respond. Security escorted the Whitmores out. Reporters chased after them. The conference was over. Just like that. The fallout was quick. Mia's article went live that night. Brian's parents were officially under investigation for fraud. Charges were pending. Their company tanked. Rachel disappeared. I never saw her again. Brian sent me one final message, I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. But I want you to know I'm done with them. I never replied. Weeks passed. The lawsuit was dropped. I got letters from other women who'd been hurt by the Whitmores. I forwarded them to Mia. Maybe more stories will come out. And me? I moved. Not far. Still Charleston. But a new home. New locks. New space. I'm still healing. Some days are good. Some aren't. I don't trust easily now. I keep people at a distance. But I've learned that love should never feel like manipulation. That loyalty without honesty is poison. And that sometimes, the people who claim to protect you are the ones pulling the strings. Do I miss the idea of Brian? Sometimes. Do I miss the version of Rachel I thought I knew? Every damn day. But I survived. And I'll keep surviving. Even if I don't know what comes next.